Okay, so um, I'm trying to think. Do you want to go through the questions that we got submitted ahead of time?
Sure.
Okay, okay, okay.
Specialized, a little more specialized, but sure, I think it applies.
Yeah. So, so one of the questions that we got ahead of time was how can we learn to stoke the fire of each other's gifts? Oh, such a fascinating question.
I like it though.
Yeah. And so thinking about the from the framework of the course, this is what I believe. I believe that all of the skills that we're teaching will help us to better support our partner in empowering them to live a life that's more focused on purpose and passion and I don't know, ease and freedom. I mean,
Yeah,
when you think about, your journey of finding something that really speaks to you, do you feel like the work that we've been doing has been helpful for you in getting, I don't know, more energized around what you want to really do with your
sure.
life?
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
mean, there's just, the personal work I've been doing, the meditation, all of that comes together. And I talked a lot about that through the modules.
right.
But without a doubt, it makes me curious with myself,
Hmm.
space for listening, those sorts of things. But I would like the partnership aspect of that question.
Hmm. Yeah.
How do we support each other? And here's my experience with you is if you see something that, you see that turns my lights on, you will ask me,
Hmm.
and you will try to make space to encourage it.
Hmm.
And so, and when the question was asked, I also thought it'd be really interesting to sit down with your partner and have that conversation.
Yeah.
You know, tell me, you know, what is your fire? And
Mm.
see what they say and be curious about it. Listen. And then you might reverse the question as well, what do you see?
Yeah.
Because you might see things about me that for whatever reason, I'm oblivious to.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. What if I'm not aware? What if I don't know?
Yeah.
Right.
Like painting for me,
Mm.
right?
Hmm. A lot of things. I can
Yeah.
think of a lot of things.
Somebody
Flute
encouraged
playing.
it.
Right.
Somebody bought me an easel and paint. I
Mm.
think if you're curious and kind, and just are wanting deeper relationship, you
Hmm.
engage in that, whether you're watching for it,
Hmm.
which, hopefully going through the course will teach people to be better at that. But
Hmm.
also, I think being direct and having those sorts of conversations in relationship can make a huge difference.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, something that can come up in couples is if someone has an interest in something that they are not interested in, even if it would be something that lights their partner up.
Right.
Um, and what?
No, go ahead. I'm just interested in where we're going.
And so I think about like, how do we support each other in that? Um, for me, I mean, there's some things that you want to do that are not interesting to me, and not only are not interesting, but are like,
Deep water sailing.
yeah, deep water sailing, jumping
Yeah.
out of an
Yeah.
airplane, yeah, things like that, yeah. And so, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, how do I support you around those things, even if it's something that maybe brings fear up for me? Um, hmm. Or isn't something that I am interested in doing myself.
Mm. You are supportive, but I think that sometimes in relationship it could be, it's scary to, that can be scary for you, for
Mhm,
me,
mhm,
um, and you discourage it. Well, why would you want to do something stupid like that?
mm,
not a good example of good communication, right?
Right, right.
Um,
But maybe really common.
Maybe so. And I think then, if that's where you are, then, going through the course will give you some tools to have a rational conversation about your fears,
Hmm.
right?
Right,
I want to support you in this because I love you or I care about you, and it scares the hell out of me. So part of me doesn't want you to do it. And
right,
I don't know what to do with that.
right,
Is I think would be a really nice way to start that conversation versus putting it down
right. Hmm. Hmm.
or getting angry and,
Hmm.
avoidant.
Sure. What if the thing that would light that person up requires more effort or time on your part?
And you are not interested in it. It gets harder, doesn't
Get
it?
harder,
We're so
yeah.
complex.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think about, what again is our goal. We talk about that a lot through the course. What do you really want in relationship? Do you really want healthy relationship? Or do you just want to not be alone?
Mm. Mm.
Because if our goal really is healthy relationship, then finding that way to support someone in their work at finding their edge of who they are and how they want to walk in the world and feeling more empowered or capable or competent. If we want healthy relationship, we would be supporting that even if it's hard, right? And I'm not talking about people who are taking advantage of their partner. I'm talking about two people who are wanting healthy relationship.
Yeah, it's interesting. What do you think about boundaries at some point, though?
Yeah, give
If
them.
you're just completely opposed to what your partner wants to do.
You, it's interesting because your deep sea sailing is very scary for me. And one of the things that I've learned really with my son that has type 1 diabetes is I want him to be as fully alive as possible, as I want you to be as fully alive as possible. And I am willing to lose you for you to have that experience. As I have learned, as I learned that I had to allow him to make his own choices, to live his life the way he chose to. And the potential consequence of that is significant, right? What I know about you is that you would be thoughtful, intentional, trained. I mean, it would not be something that you would do foolishly.
Buy the boat and take off.
Right.
I'll figure it out as I go. Yeah.
But,
That's not me.
no, it's not you. But the risk is still there. Experienced sailors die. I mean, it's
Sure.
true. But I also, what I feel like is important for me to be in relationship with people who don't have regret. It doesn't mean it goes well. It doesn't mean it doesn't cause stress in the relationship in other areas. But if that is something that you feel like you will carry the rest of your life, if you do not step in and try it, I don't want to hold you back.
Sure. I think having the conversations about the fear or the opposition, whatever it may be, is the most important part.
Hmm.
I mean, ultimately, we don't control our partners anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately not. I
Hmm.
mean, you might for a while, but
Yeah.
it could get rough.
So I think about how do we support each other? The curiosity, questions, really hearing them. Again, effort in healthy relationship. Um,
Speaking truth with heart.
Speaking truth with heart. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The true. It's hard for us to share all of the layers of what's happening for
Yeah,
us.
taking some time to think, how can I be direct and kind?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It takes practice.
Mm-hmm.
And even with practice, sometimes it's
Messy.
not so hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's relationship.
Right. Yeah. And that's really part of, what we talk about often too is, healthy relationship is messy. It's messy anyway, healthy, not healthy. So if we're putting forth the effort into having it be as healthy as we can, I think it's worth the effort. Yeah. Um, let's see. So, help navigating stress with children. How how to be with each other um, around the stress of raising children or the stress that parenting is causing our partner. What are you thinking about now? Because we are, regardless of the fact that we're not married, we are a blended family.
Yes.
So what do you feel like has been in thinking about the course? What do you think has been helpful for you over the years in the skills that we've developed around um, being with each other around the parenting that I do or the parenting that you do?
Sure. I mean, there's been some rough spots.
Sure, absolutely.
It's not simple. There's just, you know, um, we want to be liked. We want to, give love, those sorts of things. And when it's a mixed family, there's different loyalties and, all those things that even though, you know, you may really like each other, all of a sudden those things bubble up and it makes a mess.
Mhm.
And so I think, for us, speaking the truth with heart is really important, in kind
Mhm.
ways. And there have been, and periodically still
Mhm.
times that I don't do it well,
Mhm.
or you don't do it well.
Mhm.
But I think, if we are asking ourselves, what do we want? What
Mhm.
do I really want?
Mhm.
I want relationship with you.
Yeah.
And doing that means I'm doing my best to have the best relationship I can with your children.
Mhm. Mhm.
If it's difficult, then we
Mhm.
need to talk about it.
Mhm.
And I need to do it in a non-attacking, non-judgmental way. And when our feelings are hurt, it can certainly go to that direction quickly.
Sure. Sure.
So when we fall back on deep listening, when we fall back on curiosity,
Mhm.
it's those parts of the course that help teach, pausing and considering, what do I want to achieve in this
Yeah.
engagement?
Right.
What do you think?
Um, yeah, I think all the skills that we're teaching in the course are helpful. You know, what comes to mind immediately is that it's really important to understand that we aren't taught to be parents. Most of us are parents parenting either the way we were parented or as far away from the way we were parented. and um and we can have a lot of really strong opinions about what is the right way to parent
Right.
and what is the wrong way to parent. And I know, like in our relationship, there was a lot of ways that I parented that were very distressing for you earlier in our relationship, because, I taught my children to have a voice. I taught them to challenge me. And that for you was difficult. Um, and we had plenty of conversations about it. And for me, it was something, while it may be hard, it doesn't trigger me when my kids challenge me. What I wanted, what was important to me based off the experiences I had, was that my children had a voice. I didn't want any of them to feel like they couldn't have a voice. And I didn't do that so well, with my oldest. And that is something, that he is still working on getting a voice at 29. And I didn't realize it until he was, I don't know, about 6 or 7. And I was like, oh, I have I have taken that from him,
Hmm.
um, by not being curious, because I was just parenting like I was parented. Um, I I also, when I think about, I wasn't very involved in my kids, like teaching them the structure around homework. So I'm not a very disciplined parent. And so I'm not like on my kids, all the time about chores and things. And that was difficult, earlier on in our relationship. And so I think, oftentimes what happens is we aren't very curious with each other about that. We're just deciding that what the other person is doing is wrong, and that there's if you don't do these things, our kids are going to be screwed up. If you don't do these things, there's going to be, in the long term, a negative impact. When it's really more fear based, as opposed to, we've had a conversation about that. We're understanding where each other is coming from. We're respectful of each other's fears. And so I think that piece of those conversations, the curiosity, the speaking truth with heart, building, bridges with, genuinely curious questions, but understanding, like, this is something that everybody struggles with. Whether you are married to the person you had your children with, or you're a blended family, it doesn't matter. We have very different opinions around parenting and the impact that it's going to have. So for me, it would be also, how do we create the space to have those conversations? How do we set aside the time for those to even happen, as opposed to, is there a fly?
There's a gnat.
Oh, something.
Go live and see what happens. I want to be, who was it? Who was the politician that the fly landed on him? And I was like, oh my God, they didn't even feel it. I think it was Mike Pence. I can't remember. Anyway, sorry.
It's okay.
Uh,
So how do we create the space to make sure we have the space for those conversations to happen? Because I think often we're so busy in life that we're not intentionally creating the space, and instead we're trying to negotiate that, like, in the moment of the distress, as opposed to, like, sitting back and being like, okay.
yeah.
We avoid, instead of coming back and saying, okay, we really need to find time to sit down and be curious with each other around this, because I'm triggered and I know that you're, we're both triggered. I love you. I'm learning to build trust in our relationship. So having these conversations is essential, for us to gain greater understanding, and recognize that, often times when we care that much, we're both putting in effort to do it well. We just miss each other. I mean, we miss each other in communication often.
Sure.
We may not even be talking about the same thing, even though we think we are.
And I think your point about setting aside time, if you,
Hmm.
the heat of the moment is not the
No.
time, especially with kids involved. I mean, we get
Hmm.
defensive of our own children and just all that goes down.
Hmm.
And that's a mess.
Yeah.
But I think with practice, you're opening up those doors of that kind of consistent communication about your relationship. But what do you do when you have that conversation and let's say you've done it really well and things haven't risen, but there's just an absolute disagreement about how to step forward?
Hmm. I mean, what comes to mind immediately is building trust in each other is
Sure,
really
I
what
agree.
comes to mind.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Because we're not always going to find an answer that we both agree with.
right,
Right. Right. But if I have worked on building in this relationship with you that's healthy, then even if I don't agree and even if I don't understand, because from my family system, this does not even make sense, that I can see you as capable and competent and putting effort into wanting our children or stepchildren to have healthy relationships and
right.
lives. So,
Yeah,
yeah, trust in ourselves, trust in the relationship.
yeah.
Yeah. What?
Well, I mean, there are differences on
Absolutely.
lots of different issues that may
Right.
not be reconcilable. The
Mhm.
issue is, what do you want?
Mhm. What
And
do you
and
really
I think
want?
it's also
Right.
respecting each other's opinions, even
Mhm.
if ultimately, is for example, this, and I'm stepping out of the children, but the sailing thing,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
um, and deciding that, the relationship is worth
Mm.
that disagreement.
Mhm. Yeah.
That can be hard, but
Yeah.
that's part of the process.
Mhm.
Knowing ourselves and
Mhm.
being curious to know the other person.
Mhm.
And also what's developed, I think, with us is just I really like the concept of, falling back on I believe this person has my best interests at heart.
Right.
It doesn't
Truly.
mean that,
Right.
he or she does everything you want.
Mhm. Mhm. Right.
But I think just that foundational piece it's a really nice place to go
Mhm.
to help evaluate, what are you thinking? What are
Mhm.
you wanting?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. And what are you really afraid of? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And feel free to ask questions if anybody wants to put anything in the chat. That's great.
yeah,
Um, let's see. Yeah, I just think that, even the stress of having young kids, that was another one.
mm.
How do we,
It's a young parents thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's interesting because I think it goes back to, are we making time? I mean, often young parents that I'm working with are, feeling like they have to do it all themselves, maybe not trusting to have a sitter come and take care of their kids so they can spend time together, feeling like their children will be harmed in some way if they do that. They don't want to burden family members to ask if they're not willing to have a sitter. I grew up with um, siblings taking care of me. I didn't rarely have a babysitter, but my kids did, have sitters. But I know for some parents that can be really
yeah,
terrifying.
scary. Hmm.
And so they will not um, put the effort or energy into coming up with a solution that actually works because the fear is so big. And so for me, it's like, so then what is ruling the relationship? Fear or healthy relationship? What wins out? The desire for healthy relationship or fear? And I think fear often wins out.
Hmm.
What?
No, it's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. It
Yeah,
is hard.
I
Yeah.
know. And I made plenty of mistakes,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
I only had one.
Yeah. Yep, I've got
So
four.
you've got a lot more perspective.
Well, for me, the I had to build resilience in my central nervous system too. I mean that, working on my trauma, doing neurofeedback, those things were really, helpful for me. Um, I mean, there was part of me that just didn't worry about, things like I remember
It's getting you now.
there it is. Yeah. um, the, the, I remember when my second son was like 3 years old and I heard something in his bedroom, and it was nighttime and I went in there and he had taken an orange marker and he had written all over himself, the mattress, the wall, the floor. I mean, there was marker everywhere, orange marker everywhere. And my first thought was, there can't be that much ink in one of the
Yeah.
I was thinking. And, but I didn't, um, it wasn't something that stressed me out. What I believe I learned really was to look at things that children did as their way of understanding the world.
Mhm.
And so it was something that I didn't take personally. I didn't worry about the destruction of things. And I really didn't have a lot, actually, considering that I had 4 children. But I was able to understand that their brain was trying to figure out how things work, whether they were little or whether they were teenagers. And it doesn't mean it's always easy, but they're trying to figure out how the world works too, as we still are in our 50s.
Just
um,
easy to be judgmental when it's somebody else, right?
oh, of course. Yeah.
Because an old school parent would walk in, I'm gonna kill you.
Right, right, right. Or yeah, the
Time
child
for
could
your
get
spanking.
spanked, right? Or
Yeah, and
slapped
no,
or
I
right.
agree, and I mean that's part of the process. I think.
Of
Well, when you go through these modules, I mean, a lot of what we're talking about is developing the space and the
yes.
curiosity to gain that understanding.
Right.
But also, if you put it in terms of the relationship and
Mhm.
responsibility, something
Mhm.
that struck me is sometimes, um, you know, well, I can just talk about my own experience.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, I have to do everything is what my spouse would say.
Mhm.
But if I wanted to, help pick the outfit or
Mhm.
dress or
Mhm.
anything like that, I wasn't qualified to do it.
Mhm.
So it was, and we were unable to have rational conversations outside of the moment
Mhm.
like we're talking about. If I could go back,
Mhm.
I'd do it a lot better.
Yeah. What do you think you would do
Well,
differently?
just say we need to, after she's in bed or whatever one evening, I want to
Mhm.
talk about how that, comes across
Mm.
because I feel like you feel
Mhm.
that I have no interest or you're abandoned and you have to do everything
Mhm.
and all I do is work, you
Mm.
know. But tell me what things, you think
Mhm.
I can do because some might feel like I can't
Mhm.
or you don't want me to really.
Okay. So
And maybe open up the conversation that way and see where it went. And whether, going back in time, let's see, I could change me and go back, but she doesn't change. We were both teenagers,
yeah,
when I'm saying we're 14-year-olds in 25-year-old
dating.
old bodies,
Right. Yeah.
or 30-year-old bodies. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, if the other person, hopefully the other person is able to start learning with you and start changing with you to build a healthier, stronger relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, what came to mind when you were sharing that, as I was thinking, we often have an expectation that because we are now a parent or we've reached a certain age that we should know how to do it well, particularly if we're good in other areas of our life. Like maybe we're successful at work or, we're successful in a particular hobby or something. And then it's like, well, I'm capable. Why can't why is it so difficult to parent, right? So I think perfectionism stuff can come in,
Oh, sure.
um, and get in our way of really being able to set aside the space to have conversation. to be curious. Um,
We've got another question.
yeah.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have general tips about how to engage in the material? For example, should we set a specific time aside to do it together, or do we work separately and discuss?
Hmm. That is a good question. For me, it really depends on the couple. What is their situation set up? Because not everybody's doing this as a couple, right? So your partner could be a work partner. It could be your, parent, an adult child, or a friend. And we all have such different learning styles. And so I think the initial conversation with the person, whoever you're doing it with, would be, what's the best way you learn? Some people are going to want to watch the videos. Some people are going to want to just do the audio. Some people are going to want to work through the journal prompts together. Some people will want to do them separately. And so I think the initial conversation is what works for you and what works for me. To take in the information initially, I think you need to be respectful of each other's learning style. And then I would set a time to come together. If you're not going to do that part together, to come together to just conversate around what your awarenesses were. And I think the journal prompts, again, some of you may be fine just doing it out loud. Some of you may want to write it down. Again, with the skill building, those are things that you're doing together. If you're doing this with someone, um, you know, um, and I think it's important to be, direct about it. Like, I'm working on skill number 4 that we learned in module 1, and I'm going to do my best. And it may be messy, but I am trying to work on developing that skill.
Yeah.
Right. But I think setting aside a specific time, I think if that works for your relationship, I think it's a great idea. Because it can keep us focused. But if you think about it as like preparing for that time, how do we take care of ourselves before we step into that? Is it on, we're exhausted and we've had a really busy day, but we said that we're doing this at 8 o'clock tonight, but actually neither one of us
Fine.
and we haven't eaten or drank enough water today and so I think setting aside the time is great, but then part of that is the intentional process of preparing ourselves for that conversation, for that exploration. And so maybe we put on some nice music, maybe we get I don't know, a nice cup of tea or something, ice cream, whatever.
Chai works for me.
Yeah. Where we are taking care of ourselves. I believe that over the years, for me, setting space that feels good to my mind and my body to do this work is really important. And so when you walk in my home, I don't have a television in the living room. I have a bunch of candles, on the table, scents that, smell good for me. And so I would say create that space too, not just the time, but where are we doing this? Are we creating a space that supports us so that our bodies are feeling safe enough to hear each other, to have hard conversations, because these will be hard conversations too, even just the experience of it, because you will have different opinions, and different journal prompts may trigger you, different skill building exercises may trigger you. So creating the environment that really supports our body as well. Take a deep breath. Oh, it's a good time to practice breathing. What do you think about that?
No, I like the thought process. So what I think is if I think watching the video together would be probably the easiest part,
Mhm,
and might create some conversation before you even move to journal prompts
mhm.
or skill building. And so, the issue is, does it have to be a specific time? And, you can go at your own pace. So
Right.
just, it's like if Saturday mornings work because that's the quiet time, everybody's around and feeling good, then that's great. And if it doesn't, I guess what I would say is if that's not working, instead of just not getting the benefit, change your plan and, do it individually as best you can to get started or to keep the energy moving forward.
Mhm. Yeah, and being curious with each other. I mean, best laid plans, right? Like we can
Yeah.
think, oh, this is going to be a good time for us to do this. And then it's like, oh, well, maybe not. And putting effort into not getting frustrated that the initial plan maybe doesn't work as smoothly as we hoped, right?
Yeah.
Um, we're both putting effort into this. So yeah, let's rethink. I mean, we can't know. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just make a plan and it worked out just like we planned it? I just don't know that that happens very often. So, so again, we're trying to build resilience in our central nervous system we, so we can be okay when things don't go according to plan.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree.
And being respectful of each other's, desire or want for that time to have worked so it's not dismissive. That is absolutely regardless of who our partner is in this process. We do not want to be dismissive of the other person's experience,
Or
um,
turn it into a competition.
or turn it into a
Because that's a
competition.
common, event in relationships, I think,
Oh yeah. Um,
or it can be.
yeah, I think this is something that I will say in therapy, how complex we are. We often are trying to prove to our partner that we have value by making them feel less than. And so I think the competition piece that you mentioned is really important. It isn't about, I knew better than you, or I was raised better than you, or I've learned more than you. Um, it really is, again, regardless of the relationship, we're just trying to help each other grow. We're trying to help each other find more freedom. Um, can we accept that growth is messy
Mm.
and it's constantly an experiment? We are, if we can think about it as just practicing, we're just practicing learning how to do this in a healthier way.
There was a question that came up in the email submission about um, when one partner is if they're doing it as a couple or friends or whatever it is, but two people are engaging in this process and um, somebody is hitting resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what's your experience when resistance
Yes.
arises?
Well, I think expect it. It's, I think it's helpful to expect resistance. Um, our body thinks it's protecting us from something. Um, it served a purpose at some point in our life, that resistance. We just may not need its protection today. So just notice it. What is this about for me? What do I really want? What am I really afraid of? And so if we can have that awareness ourselves, wonderful. If it's something that our partner is demonstrating and they're having a harder time accessing it, to me, it would be this the kind, curious, I mean, genuinely empathetic question. What would be most helpful for you right now? Again, if our goal is healthy relationship, what are we trying to do other than to create connection and hold space for, our partner? So expecting resistance, I think, is really important.
Yeah, and going to curiosity instead of getting angry.
Yeah.
You're not interested in supporting the relationship, those sorts of things. It's being
Yeah.
curious.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's when you ask a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. What's happening for you right
What's
now?
happening? It's usually,
Yeah.
I don't fit. Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah. Um, this whole process is really about allowing our humanness in a lot of different ways. Learning to find safety and vulnerability and our truth, and our fears.
And giving space and acceptance for other people's humanness too,
Mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Whether it's your partner, a friend, a family member,
Mhm,
coworker.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Becoming present.
Mhm,
Hmm.
mhm. Yeah. And I really do think I'll say this again and again and again and again. What do you really want? Do you really want healthy relationship, or do you want to be right? Or do you want your other partner to be wrong? What do you really want? I mean, what I learned at some point, I had an awareness that the most important thing to me, period, is healthy relationship. More than anything, I wanted healthy relationship. And so when I am struggling, that is what I'm asking myself. Is what I'm doing contributing to healthy relationship? Or am I just wanting to vomit my pain on somebody?
Well,
Yeah.
we've all been there. Learning to do it less, I think, is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's part of this process,
Mhm.
We're just helping ourselves grow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really
Hmm.
is. I mean, the whole course is about creating the space for us to become more aware of ourselves in relationship and to practice different skills. Because there's some skills, that we'll find like, oh, I do that pretty well. And then others where maybe we thought we did that well, and then our partner's feedback is maybe not so well. And that's okay too. But it's really this exploration of how we are in relationship. And that isn't easy because we can think we do a really good job.
Sure.
We were talking about that. We were talking about that earlier, right? Like, some people may take the relationship assessment and look, they're like, oh, I'm 250,
Right.
right? I got the highest amount of points possible. I do this, I do it well every single
Yeah.
time, right?
Journey finished. I've arrived.
Because I think shame can come up,
Sure.
right? And so we can want to see ourselves in a certain way. We can want to see ourselves as not harming someone. And so we can talk about like intent versus impact, right? Like we can not want to harm someone and still harm them.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
It happens all the time
Yes.
in all
In
different
all
kinds of relationships.
relationships.
Yeah.
Right. 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 And so all of the skills are designed to help improve those areas, no matter who the relationship is. Yeah, because the skills are designed, that to practice are designed that you could try them, not just with your partner. I mean, those will be laid out like the ones that you do with your partner. your intimate partner will be different than the ones you do with your coworkers. But I mean, the details of the skills will be different.
Sure.
But learning to really be with whomever it is that you're trying to create connection with, you know, even if it's somebody at the store and you're trying to get your need met, or like when you were in the hospital in December and I was working on forming a relationship, with the post-op people to get something that you needed,
Yeah.
right? I mean, all of that practice has helped in all of those situations, whether or not the person is someone who's in my daily life or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Recognizing that all of us to some degree want to be seen, heard, valued, understood, to feel important, um, even someone that we do not know. Yeah. And I believe not everybody wants to be helpful, but I think most people, they want to be helpful. I just don't think we're very good at asking for help and asking for help in ways that consider the other
Yeah.
person. So, anyway, so the course works through all of that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did mention the assessment, and so let's talk a
Mhm.
little bit about that
Oh,
because the
sure.
Good point.
assessment, we want to make sure that we get it to the people
Yeah.
tuning in.
Yeah. Yeah. So the people that have purchased the course already would have received it by email. We are ultimately going to get it embedded on our website so that it's easier for you to take it electronically. And so they're hoping to have that available next week. And what I would say about the assessment, for me, just so that, people are aware, I designed it that way very intentionally. For me, asking the questions from a positive perspective is the beginning of the process of putting in our mind this way of being in relationship. So when you read the questions, they are all framed in the positive because I want your brain and your body to start going, oh, yes, yes. And it doesn't may not feel true in certain areas. You may read it and go, oh no, I do not do that at all. I still want your brain to start understanding that that's possible, that those things can happen with practice and effort. And so know that the assessment was written very specifically that way because I want those what I call like 50 affirmations. I want you to start believing that you can achieve those things. So and I think taking it every once in a while, I think is a good idea. As you're going through the course, you can wait till afterwards, but continuing to, keep in some higher levels of consciousness what your intention is.
That raises another question that
Uh-huh.
had been asked before, which was how do I track my
Oh,
progress,
sure.
through this course? And that is one way.
That
The
is
other
one way.
way is if you're keeping your journal prompts, leave an extra page so that you can go back after some time and re-answer the journal prompts and then compare
Oh, yeah.
to see, after you've finished 5 modules or all the modules, how you might answer differently, and you'll get a really good picture of whether there's been some growth or, there's things that you still need to work on, et cetera. But you will have a lot more experience at that point
Oh, yeah.
and perspective.
Yeah, the whole course is designed for you to take it as many times as you want. I mean, and that's why we did or created it this way in what's called evergreen, where it will always be accessible to you. Because as we know, we read something or we experience something and we learn something. We can watch a movie 25 times and then realize that every time we watch it, we take away something else. What is important to us in that viewing, in that reading, in that question, the journal prompt, or the skill building. I mean, it is designed in such a way that as you keep growing, you can keep growing with it. It is not, something that, yeah, has to be a one and done. I mean, it can be, but I think it doesn't have to be. Um, let's see. So the bonus materials.
And the early bird
Yeah. So the early
pricing.
bird pricing ends tomorrow, which is the 14th. Wow. Oh, Valentine's Day is tomorrow. Yay. What?
I'm just playing like I'd forgotten. I
Oh,
didn't.
oh, I forgot. Anyway,
Well,
we are going on a trip together tomorrow, so that counts. That counts.
yes.
Let's see. So the bonus materials, the morning ritual guide, again, just ideas for you to think about, like it, creating the space, setting the intention for the day. How do I tell my body and my brain that I want to engage with life differently? And let's see, and the people who have signed up um, would have received those already. And oh, the meditations. And so, oh, yeah. So I love creating meditations and the
Let me
two that,
stoke your fire. You're really good at that.
oh, thanks, babe.
It's true.
Thank you.
Anyway,
I like creating them. I like recording them. I like finding the music to go. We actually had somebody create the background music on the meditations at a certain frequency, which is designed actually to help your brain integrate new information more quickly. And so that's the background music in these two meditations that we sent that are part of the course, the healthy relationship and then trusting yourself meditation. And so they are ones you can listen to awake, asleep. It doesn't matter. Your brain and your body is still picking up the words and the frequency. And one of the things that I put in these two particular are also some breathing practices. And so, breathing deeply and releasing completely. And so you'll hear those throughout the meditations. And that's also training your body to be more aware of how we breathe, because most of us are not very aware of how we breathe. And then for people that are doing the transformation package, we created a card deck that is just more information, prompts, and exercises, daily
yeah.
affirmations that are part of it. You can just pick a card, as your thing for the day, if you want to put energy into that, or thing for the week. And that package also has a one-on-one with us if people want to ask us specific questions, and whether that's about the course or podcast, because we often get questions from people who are like, I want to ask you a question about that podcast
Yeah.
episode. So, and that would be fine too. And then I think the second package has the Facebook community, which will be just an opportunity for people to ask questions, to support each other, to share resources. I mean, one of the things that I love, I have a Facebook group that I run for therapists, and what I have loved watching over the last, whatever, 15 years is just the amount of resources, great resources that people um, have. Like, I can't possibly read everything or take every class. And so I love it when people share really good resources. Oh, and then the group coaching, yeah, that comes with that second package too. And that's really just, like tonight, you can ask whatever questions. It's just that, it's set up in a way for people to do it live. Like you can do it in the chat if you want, or you can turn on your camera and your microphone and just ask directly. So anyway, we're really excited. We love
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah.
Thank you.